dance upon this barren land. Hope in my hands, yeah, yeah. 'Cause it's living water we desire to flood our hearts with holy fire. Rain down all around the world, we're singing. Rain down, can you hear the earth is singing? Rain down, my heart is dry but still I'm singing. Rain down, rain down. Do not shun, do not shun, do not shun the heavens, but open up, open up, open up our hearts. Rain down all around the world, we're singing. Rain down,
Rain the strength to cross this water. Keep my heart upon your altar. Give me strength to cross this water. Keep my heart upon your altar.
do not shut the heavens, but open up our hearts. Do not shut the heavens, but open up our hearts.
Hey guys, welcome to the Edge Fellowship. We're glad you could make it today. Our next song is going to be Burning One. So you guys could stand and join us with worship.
Here inside your presence, taken by the wonder of you. Here inside your glory, we give our lives fully to you. Here inside your presence, taken by the wonder of you. Here inside your glory, we give our lives fully to you. We cry, holy, holy are you. We cry, holy, holy are you. Your love, it burns inside, a heart so satisfied by you. Your love is our reward, it's why we ask for more of you. We cry, holy, holy are you. Our hearts are burning, burning for you. We cry, holy, We are your burning ones. We are consumed by you. We set our lives apart. We are consumed by you. Let this love be like a fire. Let our life be like a flame. Fill our souls with your desire. Let our passion bring you fame. Let this love be like a fire. Let our life be like a flame. Fill our souls with your desire. Let our passion bring you fame.
My soul, remember redemption's hill, where your blood was spilled for my ransom. And everything I once held dear, I count it all as lost. The cross where your love poured out. Bring me to my knees, Lord, I lay me down. Rid me of myself, I belong to you. Oh, lead me to the cross. Tempted and tried, human. The Word became flesh, bore my sin and death. Now you're risen, and everything I once held dear, I count it all as lost. Where your love poured out. Bring me to my knees, Lord, I lay me down. Rid me of myself, I belong to you. Oh, lead me to the cross, to your heart. To your heart, lead me to your heart, lead me to your heart, lead me to the cross where your love poured out. Bring me to my knees, Lord, I lay me down. Rid me of myself, I belong to you. Oh, lead me to the cross where your love poured out. Bring me to my knees, Lord, I lay me down. Rid me of myself, I belong to you. Oh, lead me to the cross. exalted far above all gods. And I exalt thee, I exalt thee, I exalt thee, O Lord, I exalt thee, I exalt thee, I exalt thee, O For thou, O Lord, art high above all the earth. Thou art exalted far above all gods. For thou, O Lord, art high above all the earth. Thou art exalted far above all gods. And I exalt thee, I exalt thee, I exalt thee, O Lord, and I exalt thee, I exalt thee, I exalt thee, O Lord. Well, with all we have and with all we are, we've come so far to lift your name on high, Jesus, 'cause it's all about you, Jesus. It's all about you. And this love, this song, this praise is what we bring to you. We exalt thee, we exalt thee, we exalt thee, O Lord, we exalt thee, we exalt thee, we exalt thee, O Lord. We exalt thee, we exalt thee, we exalt thee, O Lord. 'Cause it's all about you, Jesus. It's all about you. We exalt thee, we exalt thee, we exalt thee, we exalt thee, O Lord. We exalt thee, we exalt thee, we exalt thee, O Lord. We exalt thee, we exalt thee, we exalt thee, O Lord. We exalt thee, we exalt thee, we exalt thee, O Lord. We exalt thee, we exalt thee, we exalt thee, O Lord. We exalt thee, we exalt thee, we exalt thee, O Lord. We exalt thee, we exalt thee, we exalt thee, O Lord. We exalt thee, we exalt thee, we exalt thee, O Lord. We exalt thee, we exalt thee, we exalt thee, O Lord. We exalt thee, we exalt thee, we exalt thee, O Lord. We exalt thee, we exalt thee, we exalt thee, O Lord. We exalt thee, we exalt thee, we exalt thee, O Lord. We exalt thee, we exalt thee, we exalt thee, O Lord. We exalt thee, we exalt thee, we exalt thee, O Lord. We exalt thee, we exalt thee, we exalt thee, O Lord. We exalt thee, we exalt thee Father, thank you so much for this day, Lord. Thank you so much for loving us and sending your son to die on the cross for us, Lord. Lord, just give JP the words to say. Help us to set aside any distraction that may be in front of us, God, and just listen to your words and let them touch our heart and change our lives. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
You guys can be seated.
You're unbelievable. You're so unbelievable. You're unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Hey guys, I'm so glad you're here today. Ooh, I'm loud. My name's Justin Powell. I'm the pastor of the Edge Fellowship. I'm so glad that you chose to spend your day here with us today, worshiping God and hearing His Word. I'm also excited because this morning we start a new series. The series is called Unbelievable. And honestly, some folks know this. This is a series that I've been thinking about and planning and pondering since the end of the Radical series, which is now almost 10 weeks ago. And so I've thought about this series so much because this series is based on the story of Joseph. So we're going to be in the Old Testament, we're going to be in the end of the book of Genesis, and we're going to work through the story of Joseph and his life. And if you don't know that story, you'll learn it as we go along here, but it's one of the most compelling, dramatic, like the best sort of dramatic narrative in the Old Testament. It's an incredible story that includes, everything you'd want in a story, and some things you probably wouldn't, right? It's got like pride and betrayal and jealousy and temptation and deceit and sex and prison and more betrayal and prosperity and harm and famine and need and plenty, and all this stuff is all in this story, and it's just such an incredible story of Joseph. So I want to give you a little preview of his life to catch up to speed. So watch this about Joseph.
My son.
Come and lie with me, Joseph.
I love this story, not just because of its complexity, not just because of the plot or the plot twists or anything else. The reason I love the story of Joseph is that it is primarily a story about the nature of God. Now, I know that might sound strange. If you know the story a little bit, there's this guy named Jacob, also called Israel, who's Joseph's father, and he's got a lot of part in it. And Joseph, of course, has a big part in it. And Joseph's brothers have a big role in it, in Egypt and the Pharaoh and all this stuff. But I'm telling you, none of those are what the story is about. The story is about our God, Yahweh. And here's the cool thing. And I'm giving you the end of the story before I give you the beginning. But the cool thing about this story is what we find when we go through this, as we study it, what you're going to see is that we have a God who is unbelievably in control of all things. We have a God that is sometimes lets things happen to us. Things that to us maybe they seem unfair. They seem like suffering. They seem painful. We don't understand them. They're inexplicable. And we look at those things and goes, man, that's just unbelievable. I can't believe that's happening. But then if you look in this story of Joseph, you see what's happening. And all that stuff happens in Joseph's life. We'll go through all of it. He gets sold by his brother. He gets brothers. He gets all this stuff. It's crazy. But you'll see as we go through this story that all those unbelievable things were exactly what needed to happen to bring God's perfect plan, his beautiful, perfect plan, to its fruition. Now, if we're honest with one another, right? We struggle a little bit, right? Life's not easy. Life does have hardship. And we are trying to find purpose in the middle of that hardship, purpose in the middle of that struggle. And I would bet if you were very honest, you'd probably say that you don't always understand those struggles. You don't know why they happen. You don't have a good reason for saying why God is allowing this to happen. And I don't know what your struggle is in particular. I know a lot of stories here. I know there's financial struggles. I know there's marital struggles. I know there's moral struggles. I know there's struggles with addiction. There's struggles in relationships. There's struggles in so much. But if I could accomplish anything over the course of the next however many weeks we do this, 6, 8, 10 weeks, something like that, if we could accomplish anything, what I would hope you would walk away from is that you would look at your struggle, not necessarily like, but in the midst of that struggle, be able to look and go, you know what? God might be using this struggle, this hardship, this suffering to bring about exactly what he wants in my life. And it's something that is unbelievably perfect. You guys with me? So that's what we're going to do for the next 8 weeks or so as we work through this series. We're going to work all the way from Genesis 37 all the way up to Genesis 50. So it's 13, 14 chapters. Might skip over a couple. We'll see how it goes. And so today we're going to start in Genesis 37. And I'm going to read it to you. We're going to look at verses 37, 2 through 11 first. It says this. Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flock with his brothers, the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah. Interesting names, but it is what it is. His father's wives. And he brought their father a bad report about them. Now Israel, let me just give you a little background here. Jacob, who is Joseph's father, goes by 2 names. Jacob and Israel. So when it says Israel here, it's talking about the guy that's his father. So just take that for what it's worth. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had been born to him in his old age, and he made an ornate robe for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, "Listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field, and suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it." His brothers said to him, "Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us?" And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. "Listen," he said, "I had another dream, and this time the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me." When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, "What is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you?" His brothers were jealous of him, and his father kept the matter in mind. Now, we're going to stop right there in a moment. We're going to read some more later. But I want to stop right there because as I read through that, I realized, you know what? You could have just heard the introduction to some modern reality show, right? It's, 12 Sons and Counting or Sibling Wars, something like that. I mean, as you look through this passage, the reality is within the very first verse that we read, you see mighty dysfunction in this passage. This family has some issues, if you haven't caught on to that. And as I realized, as I was thinking about, well, what's the purpose of this chapter and what's it trying to do? It's really trying to set the stage for what's going to happen for the rest of this narrative all the way through Genesis 50. And what I realized is that in this passage, each of the main characters, Jacob the father, Joseph the son, and the brothers, who we'll just call one character, they were all responsible for some really bad choices. Some really incredibly, unbelievably bad choices and decisions. And it's this series of bad choices, it's this series of bad decisions that builds one on to the another and goes on and on and on. And the next thing you know, as you'll see in our passage in the second part of this, the brothers make a decision to do something they're going to regret for the rest of their life. You know, I think sometimes we make a series of bad decisions. Make some good decisions. But sometimes we make some really bad decisions. And those bad decisions come back to haunt us. They come back to even define us. And that was something that I thought about in this passage. When you look at these guys, when you look at Joseph, when you look at Jacob, when you look at the brothers, they are defined by their decisions, by the choices that they make. And the reality is, so are we. That's a truth in our life, right? That ultimately the choices these guys make define how we view them. It defines the content of their character. It defines even their future and their destiny, as you'll see in this story. And I think that applies to us as well. And that seems kind of important to me. So I want to spend some time today looking through this passage and looking at the background and figuring out these decisions so that as we move along through this, we begin to understand, how did all these things happen? Okay? With me? All right, this is yes. It's okay. You're all going, wait, who's playing it? No. Not yet. It's like an hour before football starts. So let's start with dear old dad here, right? He's the father of this familial train wreck. And dear old dad here has a complicated life. Now, if you looked at this passage, you probably noticed something. He's got a complicated life, but it's not just because he has 12 sons, which in and of itself would be difficult enough, right? But when you look at the background, what you begin to realize is that he has 12 children from 2 wives and 2 concubines. Let that sink in for a second, guys. Okay, let's bring that up, Mark. So, 2 wives, 2 concubines, 12 kids, 1 house. Yeah, reality show, exactly. No, thank you. Jacob, knock yourself out. I'm not sure how you got to this point in your life, but you've made some complicated decisions, and I don't want to have any part of that, right? But these complicated decisions he's made in life, where he ends up in this situation, puts him in a place where he's got to figure out how he treats all these different people, right? How do you treat the different sons of the different people? And we're not going to go through which son was which wife and all that other stuff. But he has all these different children, all in the same place, all from different wives, and he's trying to figure out how to be the dad that he should be, how to love his children, how to be a loving father to his 12 boys. And I'll just tell you up front, the decision he makes, it's not going to get him nominated for Father of the Year, okay? So just stay with me here, because as we look at what Jacob does, it's very clear that he's playing favorite. Verse 3 says, now Israel, or Jacob, loved Joseph more than any of his other sons, because he had he had been born to him in his old age, and he made an ornate robe for him. Now just to be clear here, Jacob loves Joseph, and that's great, right? He has a special bond with him. That's all good. That he loves him more than all the others, okay, well, that's problematic. That's not so good. But if that weren't bad enough, Jacob decides that not only is it enough that he loves him more than everyone else, but he wants the whole world to know. Enter the Technicolor dream coats, as it's popularly called in our culture. So he gives him this very ornate coat. Now, I'm going to apologize up front because I'm going to burst some of your bubbles about what you think about the dream coat. Most likely, it wasn't multicolored. I know that's painful, that the coat of many colors actually probably isn't a coat of many colors. And you see it actually in the translation we read today, which is a more modern translation. That Hebrew phrase there that in the past was translated multicolored, probably, almost certainly, would be better rendered as sort of fancy or formal or really, really nice. That's what it's trying to communicate here. It would be the equivalent of Jacob giving Joseph like a $3,000 hand-tailored Gucci suit in our culture, right? You would look at it and go, that's a nice coat. Wow, that's a really nice suit. And giving him that would show not only that he had this favoritism for him, but also that he had some level of privilege. He's the dude walking around the shepherds with the suit on, right? He's the guy that maybe he's not officially in charge, but there's something going on here saying that he's got some privileges and he can get away with some things that the others can't get away with. And so that's the setting of the story. How do you think that works out with the brothers? They happy about that? They're sitting back going, oh, this is awesome. You know, maybe I'll get my own Gucci suit later, right? That's not really what happens here. And what we find as we go through this story is that a father's bad choice starts to fracture his family. The decisions he makes, not because I think he was a bad guy, not because I think it was sinful in the sense that he intended harm, but because he does something that just isn't very smart and it's not very loving. Suddenly there's this conflict, there's this fracturing of his family. Can you relate to that at all? Have you ever made any bad choices that damaged relationships? I mean, have you ever made a decision, just simply not because you were trying to do anything negative or that you were trying to cause discord, but you just wanted to make a decision because it's what you wanted to do, and then the next thing you know, that decision created all this conflict and all this discord and all these problems? Ever been there? Because that's where we find Jacob in this story. Jacob has a son that he dearly loves, and the decisions that he makes puts his son in harm's way. It's a crazy story. So that's Jacob. Now let's move along to another character, and we're doing a little background before we get to the meat of the story. Now, Joseph. Now, let's talk about this guy because Joseph's choices leave a lot to be desired. I tried to find a rendering of Joseph, and this is sort of what I would think, right, Ken? How long did you have to stand to model that? It's a good look. I love making fun of Ken. Okay, bringing us back in. Where were we? What are we talking about here? Oh, okay, Joseph. Okay, so Joseph is the youngest, right? Well, next to youngest technically, but the youngest in the beginning of the story. He has a brother that's born later. And as the youngest, let's be honest, he's a spoiled brat. That's really what the text implies. That he is a really, what I wrote in my notes, is a young punk kid. That's really sort of what the text says he is. It presents him as this brat, right? If you look at verse 2, if you can just pull it up again, and we won't read the whole thing, but Joseph's out with, when he's 17, he's out with his brothers from certain wives, and this is the part I want you to see, that last part. So they're out doing their work, and he comes back, and it says, and he brought their father a bad report about them. That word there, that phrase, bad report, the context of it in Hebrew is a report intended to, what's the right word? Not quite smear, but certainly intended to make their father look down upon the brothers. Right, that is Joseph's intent in bringing that bad report about him. And as I thought about that, it's he goes out, he does this bad report, and he basically comes back and he's a tattletale. And now you might not get this reference, but I love it. He's the ancient equivalent of Cindy from the Brady Bunch. Okay, raise your hand if you got that. Okay, thank you for being old with me. Not the most modern reference, but that's the perfect. There you go. That's Joseph. She's a little bit cuter than Ken in that outfit too. But Joseph is this tattletale, and he's a guy that had dreams, right? He has all these visions about what's going to happen and all these other things, and that's all fine and good. And actually, that is what's going to happen in our story. I'll give you a little foreshadowing there. He is right about his dreams. The problem isn't the dream. The problem is how he presents it. Right? He goes to his brothers and he goes to his father, and he presents these dreams in a way that belittles them, in a way that shows his arrogance, in a way that shows his pride. Even if it's not enough just to demean his brothers, when he demeans his parents, in our culture, we don't like it, but it's, it happens. These kids nowadays, right? But in this culture, that didn't happen. You could not do something worse. There was no greater offense than to dishonor the father of a family if you were the son. If you dishonored the patriarch of the family, it was like you were saying you were not his son. And so the text paints this really unflattering picture of Joseph. You guys with me there? Okay. Now as I thought about this arrogant, proud kid who did what he wanted and whatever, I honestly couldn't help but be reminded of myself. I'll tell you guys, and most of you guys didn't know me because we lived back east, but I was a young punk kid once. Now I'm just sort of an old man, I guess. But when I was 25, got a really great job. By the time I was 27, made more money than I ever thought I would my entire life. That success brought with it a level of arrogance that led me to treat people like they were pawns. Right? They were pawns in the game to get what I wanted. Some people that I worked with, somewhat, not jokingly, somewhat annoyed at me, gave me the nickname Golden Boy, right? Because I'm 25, I'm working in the middle of all these, 40, 50-year-olds, and I'm good at my job, and I'm getting well paid, and I could never do anything wrong, and that was not a term of endearment by any stretch of the imagination. And as I looked at what's happening with Joseph, I recognized my life. And I'll tell you, the Bible talks about this. Proverbs 16:18 says this: pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. Proverbs 11:2 says, when pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with humility comes wisdom. Man, I'll tell you, my life is living proof of those verses, because as the industry I was working in collapsed, I went from top of the food chain to unemployed to sitting around wondering what happened, right? And suddenly Golden Boy has lots of thinking to do, and lots of soul searching to do, and lots of trying to figure out what is going on in my life. And you know what? That is exactly what's happening to Joseph. Everything's great. He's walking around in the nice suit. His father loves him. He's got everything he could ever want. And he's living the life that he wants to live. And then the next thing you know, that pride came right before the fall, and Joseph's pride set off a mighty fall. Whew. Okay, that was a lot of background. And I know we spent a lot of time on that, but you need to have all that background so you understand what happens over the next 13 chapters. And now I want to get into sort of the meat of what we're talking about today. And that has to do with Joseph's brothers. Now, certainly, as we talk about decisions and unbelievable choices, certainly nobody in this story makes worse choices than they do. They clearly make some bad decisions. And I'll tell you, it's so interesting because right out of the gate, just in chapter 37, it mentions 3 times specifically where it says the brothers hated Joseph. Check this out. It said, when they saw his special place, they hated him. When they heard of his dreams of ruling over them, they hated him for his arrogance. When they heard his words, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to them. Can you relate to the brothers? Let me ask you a little more pointed question. Has anybody ever done something that wounded you? Somebody that was close to you, a close friend, a family member, whatever. Somebody that did something that left you hurting, it left you injured, it left you broken. Has that ever happened? The question is, where did you go after that wound? What did you do to move forward? How did you react to it? Because that question is the essence of this story. This story is about the brothers' dilemma, about what they're going to do with the wound. As I thought about this, I realized there's sort of a universal truth here, right? We don't get to control whether we're wounded, but we do get to control how we react to it. Right? Think about that for a second. The brothers, they couldn't control Joseph. They couldn't control what he said, what his dreams were, how he said it to them. They couldn't control their father. They couldn't keep him from giving him this coat that made him feel bad, or putting him in charge, or making the brother being a tattletale, all that stuff. They couldn't control any of that, but they could control what? Their reactions to it. right? And the Bible's very clear. Let me just say it straight up. The Bible's very clear that that's the situation we're in, that we can't prevent wounding. We can't prevent brokenness. We can't prevent sin. We can't prevent suffering. But what we can decide is how we will react to it. And that through the power of the Spirit, through God living in us, we have the ability to react in a way that isn't just a human way, that isn't just a natural way. And we've got to make a choice as to which path we're going to go down. The path that is a decision based on what comes easy and ultimately leads to destruction and death and discord and everything you see in this story, or the path that is much harder, that has to do with mercy and forgiveness and love, but it's a path that ultimately leads to life. Now, what I want you to see here, the tragedy of this story, is that the brothers chose the first path, right? They hated their brother. They absolutely hated everything about him because of the wrongs that he had committed against them. So listen to this. Genesis 37:12-20 says this. Now his brothers had gone to graze their father's flock near Shechem, and Israel said to Joseph, "As you know, your brothers are grazing the flocks near Shechem. Come, I'm going to send you to them." We're going to skip a couple verses here. And he says, okay. And then he goes to Shechem to try to find them, and he can't find them. And then, Mark, if you can pull up verse 18. So he goes to Shechem. He can't find him in Shechem. They've moved to Dothan. He talks to somebody else, and he ends up in Dothan. And now Joseph is walking to Dothan. He's walking to where his brothers are. And this is what verse 18 says. But the brothers saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him. "Here comes that dreamer," they said to each other. "Come now, let's kill him, throw him into one of these cisterns, and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams." You know, you can probably guess where this is headed. The brothers are going to make an unbelievable choice, a choice that you can't even fathom. And as you read this one passage, you begin to realize that they're not getting ready to make a choice. They've already taken 3 steps down the road. They have prepared their hearts to make this choice. And those 3 steps are revealed so clearly in this passage. First of all, in verse 18, it says, "But they saw him in the distance, and before he reached them, they plotted to kill him." You know, it would be a very different story if Joseph shows up and they're all hanging out eating whatever it is, sheep stew, and they're talking, and they get, into a little bit of a fight, and Joseph says something, and then in the heat of the moment, one of the brothers attacks him. Oh my gosh, they've killed him, right? That would be a totally different story than what's happening here. Because what's happening here isn't the passion of the moment. What's happening here is revealing the intent of their hearts. Hearts that were hardened by hatred, hearts that gave birth to a plan to harm their brothers. Now think about this. What that really means is, as they sat there, and I don't necessarily mean in Dothan, I just mean in life. As they sat there, they thought about their brother. And they let that hatred, that anger, they stewed on it, right? And their pride, right? Their concept that their own self-worth had been wounded, that they hadn't gotten what they wanted or what they deserved. They sort of thought about that, and they let it fester, and they let it grow, and they let it increase till it reached the point that they were ready to act on it. This isn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. Right? And as I thought about that, follow my analogy here, but this hatred that was growing in them is sort of like yeast. Now, anybody here a baker? Like 2 hands? Okay, now, Stacy back there too. Okay, here's my question. It can be for anybody, but if you guys know. What's the purpose of yeast? Okay, makes the bread rise. Any other thoughts? Yeah, there's all this chemical stuff that's happening where it's breaking down carbohydrates and producing carbon dioxide, and that's what makes the bread grow up and all this other stuff. And we're not here for a chemistry lesson, but I was thinking, oddly enough, about the commercial cultivation of yeast. And there's one company, everybody's seen that brand before in the grocery store? This is I guess the largest yeast manufacturer in the United States. So I read. Fleischmann's. And they have mastered this art of producing yeast that you can then use to bake bread. It's a key component of making bread. Now listen to this. They produce their yeast not in little baggies, right? They produce their yeast in batches of 60,000 gallons at a time, okay? 60,000. That's a lot. If you were to, I think it's 10 feet wide. If you were to have a tank that was 10 feet wide and held 60,000 gallons, it would be almost 10 stories tall. Okay? This is a big tank of yeast. Now let me ask you, how many cells of yeast do you think they start with in the tank that ultimately becomes 60,000 gallons? One microscopic yeast. You can't even see it. They can't see it with the naked eye, right? They start with one. And you know what? You put it in the right environment, put it with the right heat, the right conditions over enough time, that yeast starts to multiply, starts to grow, starts to increase. And then the increase increases, and it grows and grows and grows. And that single microscopic yeast becomes thousands of pounds of yeast. It's a lot like hate. We allow even just a little bit of hate to take residence in our heart. And the next thing you know, it starts to incubate, right? Starts to grow, starts to fester, starts to blow up. The next thing you know, this hate that was one little cell is now this raging inferno that starts to overwhelm us. And that's exactly what's happening with Joseph's brothers. They are sitting there and they see Joseph in the distance. And as they see him, they're plotting and they're scheming and they're conspiring and they're deciding in that moment to act, to take the first step down this path that started with the evil intent of their heart. And it gets worse from there, guys. Because verse 19, do you hear the first phrase that they say? They see him coming over the hill. And they look at him and they say, "Here comes that dreamer." With their pride now fully wounded, right? They begin to feed their malicious intent with justification, right? Because consciously or subconsciously, you can argue that, they construct this vision of their brother in their own eyes, in their own minds, that he no longer is their brother, right? He no longer is the person that they've grown up with, but he is the wound. He is the sin. He is what he's done to us. And they're standing there and they're looking over the hill, and you can just imagine this, right? Like Joseph's walking in, he's got the fancy duds on, right? He probably has a little bit of a strut because he's the guy that's in charge. He's the golden boy. He can do anything he wants. And his brothers are sitting back looking over the hill, and they don't see the brother they hate. What they see is the sin that he has committed against them. And they look at him, and his very existence at this point is not only a reminder of the sin that he's committed against them, but it's a reminder of the wrong that they have suffered, and it's an affront to them, and they've got to do something about it. We don't ever do that, do we? In relationships, we don't ever look at people and define them by the sin they've committed to us. Like, we wouldn't do that, right? Everybody's kind of looking down their shoes. I don't know, maybe. Where are you going with this? Right? And let me just say, hypothetically speaking, if we were to do that, I'm pretty sure if someone like that had harmed us, the first word we would call them is not, "Oh, here comes that dreamer." I know you guys, I'm pretty sure that's not the word you would use. I thought about sharing some words. I was like, no, I can't really do that. I was like, well, then I'll do just this clever rhyme. And I'm like, no, that won't work either. So to protect the more pure among us, I'll just let you imagine what word people here might use to describe someone who has cut them to the very core, right? And so that's how they're looking at Joseph. And as he comes over that hill, they get to the point where this wound, this pain, this hatred, not only has it hardened their hearts, Not only has it driven them towards justification, not only has it driven them to objectify their brother as something less than human, something less than what they are, but that bitterness and that rage and that hatred has now resulted in a desire for revenge. Verse 20 says this, "Come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of these cisterns and say that a ferocious animal devoured him. Then we'll see what comes of his dreams." Then we'll see what comes of his dreams. That little phrase is like the apex of revenge, right? That has taken revenge to an art form. They're standing there and they realize, now is my time to get even. Now is my time to make them suffer, make him suffer for the wrong he's committed. And now is my chance to rage against him. You ever been there before? Not a fun topic, right? But have we ever gotten to the point where that rage in us has blossomed into sort of this full flower of hatred and bitterness? You know, maybe it was a supposed friend that wrongs you, or a spouse, or a family member, or a loved one, or maybe a parent that did something that cut you so deep that it cut you to your very core, and you were sitting there and you finally had your chance to right that wrong. You finally had your chance to take revenge. The reality is that choice, that decision, that's a normal one, right? Yes, it's sinful, don't get me wrong, but it's a very human one. Has anybody not at least felt that desire before? That we naturally want that. We naturally need that need, so to speak, in our own minds. But here's the deal. The decision to act on that, the choice to do that, it only comes with one cost. One small little price. Your very essence. Right? The Bible very clearly warns against this path, and I think we should read it just so we understand. Hebrews 12, 14 through 15 says this, "Make every effort to live in peace with everyone and to be holy. Without holiness, no one will see the Lord." Let me explain that real quick. What that verse is saying is, hey, you know what? It's up to you to work to live at peace with everyone. It's up to you to work to be holy, and that word holy means set apart, committed to God's purposes. We would say it's up to you to try to live like Jesus, right? And those two things, if you don't do those two things, the verse says, without holiness, no one will see the Lord. What that means is, if you don't seek after those things, if you don't do those things, if you don't commit to those things, people out there who don't know Jesus will never meet Jesus because they don't see Jesus in you. That's a pretty high standard. The verse goes on, verse 15. "See to it that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many." You think the bitter root of Joseph's brothers led to some pain and brokenness? I mean, you're going to see. We're not going to get to it this week. We'll get to it next week. But you're going to see. They get to the point where they're ready to kill their brother. And they do things to him that are unimaginable. And as I thought about that, as I thought about this idea of hatred, as I thought about this idea of what it does to us, it's basically, you can pull up the next image, Mark. It's basically like choosing to take a pill. Not a pill that's going to help you. Not a pill that has any benefits whatsoever. But that a pill that you choose to ingest, that as soon as you ingest it, it begins infecting you, right? It begins multiplying within you. It begins festering in you. And slowly, it starts attacking your heart. Over and over again, it starts right there, and slowly it starts hardening it and breaking it down until it gets to the point where it kills your very essence. Why would we choose to do that? It doesn't make any rational sense. No one would take that pill. Yet we live a life where we take those things all the time and then wonder why we feel so sick. It doesn't make any sense. right? And the bitterness that it produces in your life. I see this in my own life. I've seen it. I see it in the lives of so many other people. It produces these unhealthy relationships. It produces unhealthy views of self, right? You can look at the brothers, right? It drives us to this sort of pride that Joseph's brothers allow, where they go, oh, well, look at that. He shouldn't have that coat. He shouldn't have that privilege. He shouldn't have this ability. He shouldn't have that. I should have this. I should have that. And that pride of what we think we deserve suddenly starts to define us, and we become this bitter person that's cynical about everything. Or if we don't do that, the popular course nowadays is escapism. We find something to escape into. The most popular ones to talk about, of course, are drugs and alcohol. But the reality is it can be any sort of an addiction. Whether you're talking about something that's good because you're addicted to entertainment and you decide to watch movies, 8 hours a day, or you're addicted to the internet, not that would apply to me, but some sort of escapism that gets you away from whatever it is that you're living in the midst of. Or maybe, and I see lots of people like this, they just withdraw into this cocoon, right? And they live their life in such a way that they never actually have to relate to anyone. They never let anybody inside. They can't possibly be hurt because they don't show any vulnerability of all. But at the end of the day, you know what? That prevents them from having any impact on somebody else's life because they're so concerned about protecting their own heart that they can't help those who are hurting. Man, and slowly but surely, the intent, the justification, the bitterness, all that stuff, the desire for revenge ends up being a deadly choice. But what you'll find, and it's the truth of this story, it's a deadly choice not for the person that's done you wrong, but for you. It's a path that slowly leads to spiritual death. As I thought about this whole just messed up family, I realize, I'll be the first to tell you, I probably make more dumb choices than anyone else in this room. I do boneheaded things out of anger, sometimes revenge, sometimes just plain old sin, right? And as I think about that, and I don't know if you guys want to admit that or just admit it in your own minds, that we do some jacked up things, right? And as I thought about that, and as we work through the story, the thing that really struck me is, if it weren't for these unbelievable choices in the story, a father's choice that fractures his family, a son's choice to belittle his family, a brother's choice or the brother's choice that destroys their family, if it weren't for those unbelievable choices, then God's unbelievable plan of redemption and unbelievable plan of provision wouldn't be possible for this family. Now, I know that I haven't told you the end of the story yet, but I promise you, when you get to the end of the story, you're going to see that God redeems this family and provides provision for this family in a way that's just unbelievable, truly unbelievable. You sit back and go, I can't imagine how that happens, right? And it brought me back. I just want to do one other verse. It brought me back to Romans 8:28 that says this. This is a very famous verse. And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. We know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Is that possible? Because let me tell you, when we get to our story next week, you're going to find Joseph's brothers in their pride, while they stop short of killing him, right? They throw him into this pit, and then they sell him into slavery, and then he's taken to Egypt, and he's thrown in prison, and he lives an incredibly horrible life. All things work together for the good of those who love the Lord. Did anybody tell Joseph that? Right? Did anybody share that with him in this process? Do you feel like that? Do you look at your life and go, oh, this is great. Everything's working together. It's all perfect. Right? Anybody feel that way? Because I don't feel that way. And the reality is, I often feel like, all right, God, I love you and all, but really? What's going on here? Because I'm not understanding this one. I don't quite get it. I'm sure Joseph is sitting there in the cistern going, God, what did I do? You gave me the dream. I told him. I don't know. Right? But I look at my life and I wonder, is something less than working together for the good of those who love him? Is that happening? Well, I want to ask the band to start heading back up here, or I'll just keep talking forever. But with that in mind, I want you to consider this. I want you to think about this. And again, I'm giving you the end of the story that we haven't gotten to yet. Joseph's brothers, they make this prideful decision, this horrible decision, this decision to betray their brother and destroy their brother. And it's an evil decision. But here's the really interesting thing. When we get to Genesis 50, 40, 45-ish, you're going to find that if they hadn't made this decision, if they hadn't done the evil that they did to their brother, then there would have been no provision for their family. And what I mean by that is there would have been no food. There would have been no water. Their family, and I'm not just talking about them, I'm talking about the father, the mother, the 12 boys, and all of their children and grandchildren and everything else. There would have been nothing for them. So let me get this straight. There's this God that is powerful enough to use this really evil choice, really use this sin to bring about something that's part of his perfect plan 22 years later. Think about that, right? Think about Joseph's perspective. Why am I going through this? And you're going to see it when we get into this story. You're going to see the things he says and him struggle with it and trying to understand it. And you see 22 years later, he finally gets it. He finally understands what God's doing. He finally understands that God is an unbelievable God because he's powerful enough to even use the brokenness of the world, the sin of the world, and everything else in the world to bring about his glory. And so, I just want to finish with one question. Do you believe that? I mean, honestly, do you believe that? Do you believe in a God, because this isn't about me, not about Joseph, it's not about anybody but you and God. Do you believe that there is a God in heaven that is powerful enough to take your suffering, to take your bad choices, to take your wounds, to take the bad choices of everyone else, the bad choices I make and Ken makes and everybody else in here makes, and somehow in this jacked up world we live in, to take all that stuff and all that hurt and everything else and make it the perfect plan for your life? Right? That's the truth of this story. I don't know what your issue is that you're struggling with. I mentioned, finances. I know that's been so hard for so many people. And I hear about health issues all the time and marital issues and parenting issues and addictions. And man, I could go on forever. I know there are real struggles. But what I want to ask you is, do you believe those struggles are a part of making you what God wants you to be? Because I'm going to tell you, from Genesis 1 to Revelation 22, from cover to cover, the Bible says that God is working for the good of those who love him, from one garden to another, from Eden to the time we're with him in eternity. God is working out a plan that is perfect for us if we understand who he is. And understanding who he is starts when we understand how unbelievably powerful and unbelievably loving and unbelievingly merciful that he is. And what I want to ask you to do this week is look at your suffering. Don't enjoy it. Don't. It's suffering, right? It's not going to be fun. It wouldn't be called suffering. But in the midst of it, just maybe once, ask God that no matter how hard it is, that he'll bring about something perfect and beautiful from it. And maybe that'll make the suffering worth it. And it might take a year or 20 years or 100 years. But I believe there's a God that has a plan that's so much bigger than my own. And he's a God who can bring about this perfect, unbelievable plan for our lives. Let me pray for you guys, and then we'll do one more song. Heavenly Father, I thank you and praise you. I thank you that we have a God who understands things so much better than we do. A God that can use our sin and can use the sin and the brokenness that's committed against us to bring about something that's perfect. God, I pray over the next few weeks as we dig into this passage, these chapters, that you reveal to us the truth of who you are, not because of some dude that lived 3,000 years ago or 4,000 years ago now, but because the truth of your relationship with him is just like the relationship you desire to have with us. God, set our hearts on you, even in the midst of suffering. God, don't let our pride and our jealousy and our anger and our hate, don't let those things get in the way of us knowing who you are. Let us come to you and lay down all that keeps us from knowing you so that we may see you clearly. In your Son's holy and precious name, amen. If you guys stand and sing with us.
Every single word I say, you know it before I speak. You know every thought, the deepest part of me. You draw me closer than I see. Your presence is everything I need to be the child that you created me to be. I'm ready now to see it your way. Lay down my pride, my desire, my demise. I'm ready now to see it your way. I'm done, I'm through ignoring you. Now it's true, I'm kneeling at the cross of your grave. I was faced with passing time, but I knew the choice was mine. Finally come to you and give you all control. I've wandered miles to find my way, and you've revealed this simple face. I know that you can see the secrets of my soul. Lay down my pride, my desires, my demise. I'm ready now to see it your way. I'm done, I'm through ignoring you. Now it's true, I'm kneeling at the cross of your grave. Lay down my pride, my desires, my demise. I'm ready now to see it your way. I'm done, I'm through ignoring you. Now it's true, I'm kneeling at the cross of your grave. The cross, the blood you shed for me. Your back was ripped and bruised, so I can know your love. I kneel and bow to you, my King. Lay down my pride, my desires, my demise. I'm ready now to see it your way. I'm done, I'm through ignoring you. Now it's true, I'm kneeling at the cross of your grave. Lay down my pride, my desires, my demise. I'm ready now to see it your way. I'm done, I'm through ignoring you. Now it's true, I'm kneeling at the cross of your grave. Lay down my pride.
Dear Father, thank you so much for the words that you've given JP for us today, Lord. God, help us to go out there and just lay down our pride and forgive the wounds that have been done to us, God, and look at those people that have done that to us with love and grace and mercy instead of judgment. In Jesus' name I pray.
Amen. You guys can be seated. Well, I thank you for being here today. I know that wasn't sort of a real light-hearted message other than Ken's appearance in it, which I appreciate. I'm excited about this series. This is today's really an introduction to the whole concept, and that as we work through this, you're going to begin to see some amazing things, and you're going to see God work in ways that I can't even begin to comprehend. So it's good stuff. I'm excited about it. Let's do some quick announcements and we'll get you guys out of here. First and foremost, we're still looking for mentors here at Providence, and I actually brought the forms today. Hey, can you hold up one of those, Mark? They're green on one side and pink on the other. This is the background check form for the Denton ISD, excuse me. And if you'd like to be a mentor for kids here in this school, we still need, it's 3 or 4 more mentors for kids ages kindergarten through 5th grade. All you have to do, it's 30 minutes a week. It's here at the school. There's a cool area called the Patriot Plaza that they do it in. All you have to do is fill out that background check form. If you've done one with us, it doesn't count. That you have to do a Denton ISD background check form. But you can grab that from Janet. If you can get it to me this week, I'll get it into the school and we'll be able to go from there. Moving right along, this is not on the city yet, but some guys got together and decided, hey, we're going to get together for breakfast next Saturday. It's going to be at Betty's. Is that right? Hold on. Where are my guys? There's Lenny. Oh, there he is. Betty's. What time did we say, man? I can't remember. 7:30. Yeah, okay, good. I'm glad you said 7:30. So, hey, I guess it's a really good place. Good time to hang out. Just guy hangout time really early in the morning on a Saturday with good food. So, in addition to that, there are a ton of other events going on or that are coming up. Off the top of my head, I can think of about 10 over the course of the next 2 months. I know Lenny wants me to talk about February 4th, which is our big Edge football game. That's the Super Bowl weekend. And on Saturday, Lenny will get the details on the city, but we're going to be having our own little football game here. And there's a bunch of other things going on as well. If you're not on the city, that's our church-wide private social network like Facebook, where you can find out, you can look at our events calendar, you can get information, you can listen to for this time now, you can look at, what's it called? Video, that's what I'm looking for. You can download video of our services. That's all on the city. Last but not least, we as a church, we don't take a traditional offering, and I actually don't talk about giving that much, and I'm reminded that I need to do it every now and then. If you'd like to give to the Edge Fellowship, you can give in that box right there. You can give online on our website at theedgefellowship.org, or you can, some people go through their bank, bill pay or whatever, and automatically send payments. All those are great. We'd love to have you come partner with us. The reality is in 2012, as our church grows and as we continue to expand our ministries, we certainly are in a place where funds are needed. And you'll give whatever God puts on your heart. That's my prayer for you. I don't need to beg anybody for money. God will deal with you on that, and I hope that you are right with God. And so I've told you how to do it, and you can deal with him on how you're going to do it. Now, last but not least, gatherings. So this week, women's gathering is Wednesday at 6:30. Is that right? Brandy's house still? Yes? Adult gathering, sorry we missed last week. My little one is now better and strep-free, but Thursday at 6:30 at our house, and Teen Edge, where's Kathy? We are doing this Thursday?